Hey everyone, Charlie here. Hope you're all doing well. There are many different types of personalities that you can have that will both make you a good or a great English teacher, right? But what I want to talk to you about today, I think, is one of the few personality traits you can have that will just sort of disqualify you from being a teacher completely. Right, now as a disclaimer, I should point out immediately that this video is sort of fueled by some personal experiences I have, so there is a little bit of a personal, emotional aspect to it, but I still think, nonetheless, that the things I'm going to talk about today are valid points. One of the very first things they tell you when you come in to train to be a teacher here, when you come over for your Eikaiwa or whatever, is that you have to, sorry, I keep thinking somebody's behind me, is that you have to be willing to let things go, right? And that particularly when you're dealing with kids, when you're dealing with your students, right? Now, no matter how many times you see on Twitter or in YouTube comments that Japanese kids are perfectly well behaved, or Japanese kids are shit, or whatever the comments are that you see, neither one of those opinions is true. Japanese kids, in my experience, are just like kids anywhere else in the world. They have the same wants, they have the same needs. They want to make themselves heard, they want to make themselves understood, they want to be accepted, everything like that, right? And so what comes from that, right, is that you have kids who are well behaved, you have kids who act out in different ways. Maybe they disrupt your classroom, maybe they help other kids in your classroom, right? There's two sides of the same coin, basically. And you're never going to hear teachers complain about the kids who are helping other students to get the information that's being presented to them to help them get better in English, whatever the case may be. But of course, when you have a kid who regularly misbehaves, I'm being eaten alive by various bugs here, when you have a kid who regularly misbehaves or does something particularly egregious, like I had a kid just out of nowhere the other day was like, you know what, I'm going to knock your CD player off the top of your bookshelf in your classroom. And of course the CD player was like, kaperf. And it would be really easy for me, it would be really easy the following week. Everything is talking right now. It would be really easy for me the following week to be like, hey kid, remember that time you broke my CD player? And so the point that I want to make to you today is that if you are a person, if you know about yourself that you hold grudges, that you can't let things go, then, and you're also somebody who is thinking about coming over here to teach, or is thinking about getting into any teaching environment, any teaching profession, then I would really urge you to reconsider that position. And the reason for that is there are two. The first is that there is a human cost to this, and the second is there's going to be a professional cost to you, right? Now, the first is, right, when your kid comes in the classroom and say you remember that time where they destroyed a CD player on like a whim and you can't understand why they did that. If you remember that every single time they come in the classroom and you treat them differently from the get-go, just based on that interaction you had, it's immediately going to sort of poison your classroom environment. That kid's going to know that you're treating him differently because he made a mistake, he or she made a mistake, and the kids are going to be able to see it too, right? And so you're going to sort of tarnish how your kids think about you. And I don't ever want you to underestimate just how much your kids think about you and how important that will be for you personally and how much that will affect your classroom. But also you're going to sort of defeat yourself, because if that kid feels like he's going to make a mistake once and you're just going to treat him crappy for the rest of the time, what motivation does he have to try hard in your classroom? What motivation does he have to be better if you're only ever going to remember the mistakes that he or she has made, right? And that's the one thing. The second thing is that eventually that kid is going to get sick of it, or that kid is going to say something to their mom or their dad, and then that's going to come back to the school, and maybe that kid leaves, and that reflects very badly on you. And if that happens too many times, guess what? You're out of a job, you're out of a visa, whatever the case may be, right? So, those are things to consider. Now, you might be wondering, as I'm saying this, how common is it actually for a teacher to really get out of hand like that and just treat a kid really badly? And I have to tell you that it happens more than I would care to say, right? Maybe something not like the CD thing, but maybe the kid the week before calls a teacher a bad word, or says something really, really like not nice about a classmate or something, and you'll sort of see it reflected in like the teacher's eyes. And this is both for other foreign teachers such as myself and Japanese teachers who might be at your school, where they're just like, suddenly their attitude changes and it changes permanently, right? And you sort of see it reflected in the kid when they come to the school, right? Whereas before, usually, no matter what, if you're doing your job properly, I think kids who may not necessarily be interested in learning English will still be excited to come to your classroom, because you at least make it interesting for them while they're there. You give them an environment where they can make friends, where they can feel engaged, where they can feel appreciated, and where their creativity can flow in a way that I guarantee you it might not be in other parts, particularly here in Japan and other parts of their lives. And then the opposite end of that, when you treat them like this, you see them, they come in, and it's sort of like the same behavior that a abused animal sort of displays, right? Their shoulders are hunched low, they won't look you in the eye, and the way they speak is different, the way they interact with their classmates is different, and it's a very, very negative situation. You're going to be challenged a lot. Your ability to let things go will be challenged. Your ability to be patient, all these other things, is really going to be challenged every single day. And it's something really to think about, I think, particularly just for the sake of these poor kids. They're just kids. Now, I do want to point out that there's the difference between sort of, I guess what I'm talking about is being able to forgive, right, and actually forgetting. I don't think you should forget. But I don't think you should act constantly on the memories you have of a kid acting poorly, right? The fact of the matter is that if a kid is, despite your best efforts, despite your best efforts to treat them fairly, to treat them nicely, to sort of encourage them to act better, if they're still disrupting your classroom environment, then yes, you should be remembering these things, so that when it comes time to sit down with them and your manager, or sit down with them and their parents, you can sort of lay out, okay, well, this has been going on for a while, and we've taken step X, Y, and Z, and we're still in this place. So you have to be able to lay that out, so that when it comes time to sort of deal with things with more of an iron fist, that you can deal with it in a healthy adult way, right? So you can sit down and have conversations with parents, have conversations with students, which, by the way, should always be your first step. So don't forget, but be able to forgive. And if you can't forgive ex-friends you've had, ex-girlfriends, bad interactions you've had with family members, then I would really struggle to accept that you can forgive students just for being kids, right? So just something to consider. If you're feeling judged by this, I'm not trying to judge you. I'm just trying to warn you that if you have this dream of coming over here and you have this personality trait and you treat people this way, that maybe you're not going to have the most exciting, rewarding, fun time. Have the time that many of us do get to have and do get to enjoy when we come over here and are given the responsibility and sort of the privilege of running a classroom. So on that note, guys, as always, let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Have you had a teacher treat you like this when you were growing up or while you're in school now? These are problems I've dealt with as a kid who my parents often described as spirited. But anyway, I'd love to talk to you guys about this, of course. And on that note, guys, thanks always for watching. Please like and share the video if you did in fact like it. I'll see you very soon indeed. Cheers. I walked through a garden of some interesting sculptures, but somewhere between the chode garden and the rusty fence, I thought, not for the first time, that maybe I just don't get art. I went into a museum, looked at some pots, stared for a long while at a verdant garden and quiet pond, got way into this door leading into a tea house, and then, most excited of all, bought some jelly in a can. Jelly in a can.